Hello, and welcome to Sideways. This week, we're talking about why other people might try and convince you that your drinking or drug using isn't a problem, when you finally reach the conclusion that it definitely is. Also, Martin reveals a guilty pleasure after some passive aggression caused by my small administrative error. Denial by proxy.
Hello.
Morning. How you doing?
Don't use that supercilious face with me.
Well, I thought perhaps you got your AMs and your PMs mixed. You got your anti and post meridians mixed up, mate. And I thought I was supposed to be waiting up till 11 o'clock this evening to record that.
And it didn't require the passive aggression that you laid at my door with your text message. I merely made a slight error. I said to you, "Can we meet around 11?" And you said yes. And then I wrote in my diary 11:15 and forgot to tell you. So I apologise.
Oh, apology accepted. Yeah, there's no problem. Let's move on.
I'm actually not that sorry.
No, I can see in your face you're not. But I'll just move on from it. I can do that. I'm a big enough man.
With serenity.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how are you doing anyway?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Yeah.
How's your eye?
My eye's okay. Yeah, and my groin.
Yeah.
They're all good. They've all had medical attention recently, but it hasn't stopped me getting back to work and earning a crust.
You're a wonder of modern science, aren't you? You're virtually like Steve Austin, the Bionic Man. Was it Steve Austin?
It was Steve Austin, yeah, but I haven't had bits replaced. I've just had the bits that are there repaired.
I've had bits replaced because I've got a lens, a plastic lens in my eye.
Yeah, I know. So you're more like the Bionic Man than me in many ways.
Well, as you say, in many ways, yeah.
That's the only way I can think of at the moment. I'm racking my brain, but there probably is others, or are others.
Don't think of. Didn't he have a red jumpsuit?
That would suit you. I could see you in one of those, yeah. With his 70s style hair.
I had some red jeans at one time. Do you remember?
I did, yeah, I did as well. I think they were all the rage. I think I wore them on stage early on.
Yeah, I certainly wore mine gigging, and I probably told you this, but I remember once wearing them to church. And they were very tight, my red jeans, and the vicar said to me, because you know the vicar was a friend of the family.
I do, yeah.
The vicar said to me, he looked at my jeans. He said, "Are those Wranglers?" And I said, "No, they're not Wranglers. They're whatever they were." And he said, "They look more like Stranglers, the way they're pulling your balls apart." That's what he said to me in church.
In church, he dug you out, didn't he, in the house of the Lord? He shouldn't be doing that. I could go on that point, but I'm really not going to.
These days, I reckon that'd probably be on the front page of the newspaper, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, the Sun would love that one.
He was a good man, though, old Father Paul.
He was a good guy, actually. Yeah, well, I only met him at your wedding, but. Although he was quite rude to me as well at that point, I remember. But he seemed to be quite a reasonable chap.
Well, to be honest, you probably deserved it.
I can invoke rudeness in anyone, even a representative of God.
Anyway, what are we talking about today?
Well, it's in your hands, isn't it? We're having a bit of a change,
that's true,
aren't we?
That's true. Yeah. So I said I wanted to talk about something, and I expect. Well, I'm kind of reasonably reliant on the fact that you then went away and sort of thought about it and wrote some notes, because this is how much preparation I've done. Look,
I can't really see anything on that paper. Is that totally blank, or is it just the camera? It's not picking up the writing on it.
No, it's literally blank.
Is it?
So I'm kind of shooting.
No, of course.
Here.
Okay, no, I did have some thoughts about it. So I knew I'd probably going to have to hold the podcast up as normal. So I did a little bit of preparation, obviously.
Anyway, I'll tell you how it came about. What I wanted to talk to you about. I was watching. Do you remember there was a television series, or there've been a number of them, starring Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. The first one was called The Trip. Do you remember? Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
It might have been in your lost years, I suppose. And I've just been watching the one that they did in Spain. And in one of the episodes, Steve Coogan, who plays in the series a recovering alcoholic, there are a few times when they're having dinner where he kind of mentions this. He says, "Well, of course, I don't drink wine anymore. I don't drink." And then in one of these episodes, Rob Brydon said to him, yeah, you weren't an alcoholic, were you? You just drank a bit too much. And there was this little silence, and the camera goes on Coogan, and Coogan's looking at Rob Brydon. Doesn't say anything, but he just kind of looks at him as if to say, "What the hell are you talking about?" And it made me, and I found myself thinking at that time, I was a bit angry. I found myself feeling a bit angry with Rob Brydon to kind of doubt someone who had said that they'd had a problem with alcohol, and it made me wonder whether that happens much in your experience, and I just thought it'd be a topic that was worth talking about.
It is worth talking about. I mean, when I was getting some notes together before you very rudely set the time back by 15 minutes to put me out of kilter, my notes, the working title was Denial by Proxy. It sort of summed up what you wanted to talk about. So I hope that I'm on the right path. I think we are, from what your opening gambit is there. I think we are, because it is an interesting issue, and it does come up surprisingly often. It really does.
It's quite a common thing then.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've come across it a lot. There's so many different reasons for it, and I can go through some of the reasons I've thought about. And there's probably loads more, but it does happen on the basis. I can imagine. I was just trying to picture that with Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon there. I can imagine that in that situation, Rob Brydon would have felt a little bit embarrassed and didn't want to. It's almost like a taboo subject sometimes, and people feel very uncomfortable with talking about it, so it's best to deny it altogether.
Mm. Yeah, it might have been that. I mean, you probably have to watch the series, but my take on it was that they knew each other so well, and I think when you know, one of the other conversations we've had in the past is about how we can be kind of defined by a certain aspect of our behaviour or defined by a certain part of our lives. Right? Do you remember we talked about that?
Yeah, I do.
I don't know what it was, identity or something. I don't know. Who are you? I think it was called. And the feeling that I got was that I think when you know someone very well, you don't define them by that thing. So, for instance, I don't define you just by the problem you've had with drink. And I suppose because I see you in, from lots of different angles, it probably would have been easy for me to have said at one point in your history with drink, "Oh, I don't think you've got a drink problem. You just like a beer," because I would have been able to kind of see it from that perspective for years and years and years. And then when you got to the point where you thought, "Crikey, I might have a problem with drink," it would probably, in some respects, it would have been easier for me to dismiss it. I mean, not least because of what I potentially would lose.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's potentially what the other person can lose. I mean, a lot of people would say it because they think it's a nice thing, a matey thing to say to someone. It's almost like shoring them up and saying, "No, you haven't got a problem. It's not an issue." But I mean, we've had occasions. I remember one occasion where a girl was coming to groups, and her hubby stopped her coming. And I remember bumping into in the street, and she said, "No, well, my hubby, he says that I don't really have a problem, and that I'm sort of neglecting him by going off to groups." And so from his point of view, he felt that she was neglecting her duties, as it were, and was swanning off to groups. Now, people, you've got to remember, and again, going back to that situation with Steve Coogan, if someone says they're an alcoholic, it's taken an awful long time to get to that point. The self-denial is so strong for so many years. So if someone actually defines himself as an alcoholic, there should be no questioning of that. Because it's a long way to get there internally, and people should respect that. But it comes down to the misunderstanding of the condition in many ways, and sometimes that term alcoholic is thrown around pretty loosely. And anyone that's gone out and had a couple of drinks too many one night, he's a bit of an alky. It's do you understand?
I do understand. I found myself, one of the questions I found myself asking was, in that situation where someone either declares that they are an alcoholic or, is in recovery from alcoholism, it made me wonder, when someone says, "Oh no, you weren't an alcoholic," or "You're not an alcoholic, you just like to drink," other than what they stand to gain personally, I couldn't see any other kind of I can't see any other benefit in saying that. Why would you say to someone who recognises that they've got a destructive relationship with alcohol, why would you argue with that? It kind of beggars belief.
Well, I've got loads of answers for that. Do you want me to go through them?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
No, I'll tell you what. I'll a little bit of a confessional here, because I can draw upon my own situation. Although it's never happened to me, as far as someone saying to me, you got a drink problem. I've done it to someone else, and yeah, I have. And thinking about it when I was doing these notes, it's pretty shameful, really. But it's how I felt at the time, and I'll fill in a few of the gaps here. But it was. We talked about it before. A couple of destructive relationships I had after my marriage had broken down.
Yeah.
And the first one I went into was with a girl who did tell me. She did say that she admitted that she had a reliance on drink, and I brushed it aside at the time. And I remember saying to her, "You probably just like you drink quite a lot, but you probably just like a drink like me." Because I was probably still in my own denial to a certain extent anyway. And the last thing I wanted was to have hitched up with this new girl, and then there was a massive problem straight away that potentially could have destroyed it. I wanted to work at it. I liked the girl a lot, and it was, and so I had a lot to lose at that point. Not only would I lose potentially a drinking partner, which was the main attraction for the relationship, but I'd also then have to probably admit to myself. So although it's quite strange that the situation of denial here was coming from someone else that was also in denial, I thought it was quite an interesting take on what I'm talking about. But it happens a lot where people will deny their partners have got an issue. We get this a lot, particularly with people that are drug addicts, for example.
Yeah.
They're bound together by, if they're taking a Class A, the two people are bound together by that. And it's really difficult for one of those people to go into recovery and to have a sustained recovery if the other partner's denying that they've got a problem themselves and that their partner hasn't got a problem.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that would kind of fall under the category, wouldn't it, of you had something to lose if you didn't try and persuade her from the idea that she had an alcohol problem.
Yeah.
But I've got a question about that, actually.
Okay.
Let's call her, what should we call her? Agnes. Let's call her Agnes.
Agnes. Okay, yeah.
I can see you taking someone.
I like that name. I can't believe you remembered her name was Agnes. Oh, that's a disgrace.
Yeah, well, I do remember her name, but I didn't think I should use it.
No, quite.
What I'm interested in asking you is, why do you think she told you that she felt she had a problem with drink? What do you think it was?
I'm not really sure.
Motivated her to tell you that?
I think that it was the start of the relationship. She felt she ought to be honest. Looking back, it was remarkably honest of her to say that, because she must have known at that point it could have been a potential deal breaker.
She must have been, as a drinker, she must have been able to see that you had a drink problem as well, surely.
Yeah, I think, looking back on it in retrospect, there was the mutual understanding. It became, after we'd had that initial discussion, it sort of become a no-no, if you like, because initially we said, "Well,
you talking about it was a no-no."
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So that makes absolute sense. It's almost like it was almost like the unspoken thing there was, can we agree that we're not going to talk about this?
We did, but what we'd said before that, we talked about it quite seriously at some length. And said, perhaps we'll have a curfew then, like people do. And said, perhaps we won't start until 6 o'clock. And I said, no, I'll tell you what, I'll do that as well. That'd be fine. And I remember going around to pick her up on it's one of her early dates. I went to pick her up about 7:30, which was an hour and a half's worth of drinking from 6 o'clock onwards. And she was completely smashed when I got there. And it turns out, she'd been drinking anyway during the day, and so would I. So it wasn't.
So what started out as an attempt to have a kind of some clarity at the beginning of your relationship, you actually managed to impose rules which ensured that you were lying to each other and yourselves right from the beginning.
Not a great basis for a relationship, was it?
The other thing I'm wondering there is, when she said to you, I've got a problem with the drink, I wonder if there was a part of her that was hoping that you too would say, yeah, I have as well.
Maybe.
And whether
I wouldn't have admitted it at that point.
No.
And I think also it does come up, and I think I felt the same then. Perhaps she felt it as well, that it's embarrassing to have a partner who's an alcoholic or a drug addict. It's something which you would feel that you don't want to admit to other people and tell other people, especially early in a relationship. Introducing a new girlfriend perhaps to your friends and relatives, and you say, well, by the way, she's an alcoholic. It's not very much of an easy opening gambit, is it?
Oh, so Martin, what do you do? Well, I drink vodka, mainly.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really going to smooth the path, is it? You're not going to have the potential father-in-law put his arm around your shoulders.
Really?
You're a good boy. Yeah.
Really. Mind you, I suspect you probably could have drunk vodka professionally, couldn't you?
I've drunk enough to know what each. Yeah, I could go onto a tasting panel. Not now, but I could have done. Yeah.
I certainly think you could have been an international drinker, couldn't you? You'd have been more than lower league. I think you'd have been.
I could have represented in England in the vodka World Cup. Yeah, definitely, and done pretty well. I reckon I got through the group stages okay.
You might have struggled when you come up against the Russians.
The Russians would have, in the Poles would have probably given me a bit of a run for my money.
Yeah, okay.
But I think basically, if the problem isn't acknowledged by the other partner or someone else because it comes up often with parents as well. We've had it where parents are embarrassed about their children being drug addicts, especially drug addicts. But I don't differentiate between a drug addict and an alcoholic. It's all addiction. Mm-hmm. It's just a different substance. But because society accepts alcohol being in the mainstream and heroin and cocaine aren't, then the parents can deny that their children have a problem because they don't want other people to see that they think it reflects upon their parenting skills, but the way they've brought them up.
Yeah, so that makes me that brings another question in my mind, and this would be certainly pertinent for parents, but I guess would also be true of partners. Do you think sometimes people will deny their partner's problem with addiction because it saves them having to worry about it? Because, if you're a parent and you're able to say, oh, no, I don't think you've got a drink problem or a drug problem, you're just a kind of casual user or whatever. Do you think it's something that, might help you avoid the terrible worry you're going to have thinking about the fact that your partner or your son or your daughter is an addict?
Undoubtedly, which is why often we see parents can become enablers.
Yeah,
because it keeps it under the carpet, doesn't it? It keeps it away from mainstream. If they can just be kept quiet and dealt with properly, especially with drugs, because a lot of people can get into crime to support their drug habit. So if you have a parent that enables them, keeps it out of the headlines, basically. I've seen it happen, and I'm not just, it's not conjecture. I have seen that happen. I mean, if you look at it, there's a famous case, really. We can look at Amy Winehouse, can't we? I don't know if you've seen Amy, the film.
I haven't seen
it. Have you watched that?
No, it was too popular.
Too popular. Well, it's a fascinating film, and obviously Mitch, her dad, really doesn't come out very well in it at all. And I think you've only got to look at the lyrics of the song Rehab. And when she says, I ain't got the time, and if my daddy thinks I'm fine, they tried to make me go to rehab, and I won't go. It's classic.
I'm sorry you didn't sing that, to be honest.
Well, I'm not going to do that anymore because that off-the-cuff singing I did in the last podcast, it ended up in the final cut. Well, you were away. Yeah, well, I sang that whilst you were away answering the door, so I didn't think it wouldn't end up in the final cut. So I was a bit disappointed at your attitude, to be honest.
Yeah, sorry. Back to Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse. I mean, his motivation there was keeping her out of rehab, was keeping her on the road, wasn't it, and keeping the money rolling in.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely disgraceful, isn't it?
It is. But again, that was his motivation. And so the different people dealing with addicts have different motivations for keeping them in denial. No, I had this occasion where there's a guy who used to come into groups, and he always used to go. He went to the fellowships as well. He went to AA. AA was his main one he went to, and his girlfriend had said to him, "I really don't think you're an addict. I think that AA it's a cult, and you'd rather spend time with them than you will with me."
Oh my God.
And that's a lot of emotional blackmail going on there, isn't there?
the real sadness about that is when someone's in recovery, or certainly recently in recovery, there's such a vulnerability about you at that point. You're going to be very easily influenced, aren't you, by what other people say to you. So if you've had a problem and then you get into recovery, and then, and someone says, I don't think you've really got, you've not really got an issue. AA is a bit of a cult. You should steer clear of that. It's going to be so easy to influence a lot of people because they will be so so unsure of their own opinions on things.
Again, it boils down to ignorance of the condition, of the disease. I mean, you wouldn't say to someone who's got some other life-threatening disease, which addiction is, and say, no, you can't go to the doctor. I'd rather you stay here and cook my tea. I mean, it's just outrageous. It wouldn't happen. Well,
I mean, no, you're right, actually. And it reminds me of the number of times where people who've got a weight problem are kept in their position by partners because their partners have a fear of what will happen if they lose the weight. So, for instance, often you see that people will be encouraged to keep eating because their partners fear that if they get thin, they might leave them and go off with someone else. So there's an enormous amount here that's about really kind of dysfunctional control.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is, because I think it comes up so often that it can't be a coincidence that it happens. I mean, I remember there was I took a phone call one evening at home, and there was this lady said, "My husband's got a drink problem. Can you talk to him?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I can. Got no problem in doing that." And she said, "Can you report back to me afterwards and tell me what he said?" And I said, "No, I can't do that." I said, I'm quite, if it gives me permission to talk to you about it, then fine. But no, I can't do that. And there's this dynamic going on between the husband and wife in this situation, where she was completely trying to control the outcome. And so that I found that quite interesting.
Well, that's the sort of situation that would drive you to drink, isn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah. And as it turned out, I did have a chat with the guy, and he was in total denial anyway. Even though, from what his representation of the facts were completely different from what his wife had told me. And who am I to believe?
Yes, I mean, that in a way that kind of explains why she wanted you to feed back to her, wasn't it? Because she could see something she wanted to change, but he didn't want to change it.
Yeah.
What about where people have? Because one of the conversations we've had in the past is this notion of when you've had a problem with drink. You cannot go back to being a social drinker, right? That's basic, isn't it? That's recovery 101, really.
It is, yeah.
I'm wondering about, and obviously that has a big impact on the way you live your life. Certainly has a big impact on your social life. I mean, you've become significantly more boring since you stopped drinking. So,
undeniably,
I can't go to the pub with you or anything like that. So, as I've said to you before, being an alcoholic is selfish of you.
No, I do go to the pub. I just don't go with you. I don't like you.
Anyway, what I was going to say was, when someone has had a problem with drink and they get into recovery, or with drugs and they get into recovery, have you had any situations where once someone's in recovery, someone in their life will say to them, "No, I think you'll probably be all right now. You'll probably be all right to have a drink now. You've been in recovery for a year or 2 years or whatever," and that causes relapse.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I've come across that, and again, it's a misunderstanding of the condition. Although it's quite tricky because we can't understand as addicts. We can't expect people to understand the way we behave and why we take drugs and drink, because it's irrational for us to behave in a way that's slowly killing ourselves.
Yeah.
But we do get that. We do get that, and people that have had quite a hectic social life, where they are going out a lot and socialising, for one of those parts of the jigsaw to fall away, especially if you got you get people go out in pairs, don't they? They get 4 people go out together, or 6 people. They go out regularly together, and one of them says, "I've got a drink problem. I'm not going to be able to drink anymore." The whole of that dynamic of the group can change, because again, it's a subject that the other people find it difficult to talk about, and you do see those groups started to splinter. And that person does go into recovery, tends to find people to change the people he's been surrounding himself with or herself in the past, for people that are are in recovery themselves, or don't drink.
Yeah, what it brings into quite sharp focus is how difficult so many people find it to be selfless. When it comes down to it, most people put in that situation seem to find it hard to break away from the feeling of what they're going to lose, rather than potentially what their friend or their loved one is going to lose if they don't support them.
Well, it is, and again, it's just that addiction isn't treated in the same way as other conditions and other diseases. Because if it was, talking about that group of 6 people in the past, if one of them said, "I've got cancer, I'm not going to be able to come out for some time, I'm going to go and have chemotherapy," everyone would rally round. Mm-hmm. Someone says, "I'm an alcoholic," they splinter off and carry on drinking on their own. Yeah. It's a shame, but that is the reality of how it works at the moment.
That in itself is a denial by proxy. It's like it's almost a tacit. Okay, you're an alcoholic, but come on, that's your choice. Why don't you just stop drinking? Don't expect me to change my behaviour just because you've got a problem that might kill you.
And from the addict's point of view, we wouldn't expect other people to change the way they behave.
Yeah, I don't know. I know we've spoken about this before, and I must admit, I don't know why I've got such a kind of strong view about this, but I sometimes feel as if, certainly the people I've worked with that are in recovery, I feel as if they could be a little bit more, have a slightly higher expectation of the people around them than they do. And I wonder if that is just in the DNA of an addict, that there is something around, I don't know, shame perhaps, or guilt, that makes you feel, okay, yeah, I know it might make it a little bit more uncomfortable for me if people around me are drinking, but it's my issue. I can't influence other people. But I always think to myself, yeah, why the hell can't you? Why shouldn't you? You're just as important as everybody else.
It is a great point, and it is something that we've discussed in groups in the past. But it is quite tricky. I think when you've had a period of addiction, your self-esteem is so low anyway that you really don't expect other people to lift a finger for you.
No, I get that.
You feel a lot of guilt and a lot of shame about the condition you had or what you have, because society generally looks down upon addicts as being someone without a moral backbone.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I wonder whether it wouldn't be good sometimes for people in recovery to try and break free from that a little bit. I mean, using your cancer analogy, if you had a friend who was recovering or in some sort of remission or having treatment for lung cancer, you wouldn't sit around them smoking a big cigar, would you?
No, you wouldn't.
So I don't really understand why. I mean, I know it's different for different people at different stages of their recovery. I know you don't mind if people are drinking around you, but you've got someone who's kind of early in their recovery, and I've worked with people like this, their family and friends are quite happy to sit around them drinking. And I always think, why don't you just say, no, I can do without that, thanks very much. I understand what you say about the kind of shame and the guilt, but in a way, all you're doing is you're sustaining that by refusing to say, actually, this is not helping me. If you care about me, you wouldn't drink around me because it's not helpful.
I totally get that. I do get that position, and which is why we always encourage people in the early stages of recovery in the first few months not to put themselves into a position where they are around people that are drinking. Mm. And I think but the whole point of recovery is reintegration back into society, back to connection rather than isolation. And when you go back into society, there are going to be people drinking around. You can't avoid it. And so you have to come to terms with the fact that it is going to be there. You're not going to be able to change other people's drinking habits. And therefore, once you're strong enough in your own recovery, you re-enter society at that level. And then you can choose whether you're around those people or not.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I mean, obviously there are some situations where you can't influence what other people are doing. I just feel that, if the people around you are truly supportive of you, they should surely be willing to do whatever is necessary to be of maximum support to you, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they should be. I suppose you do get that with your closest friends and relatives. It's people that are in the slightly wider circle that you move in wouldn't have the same emotional connection with you and therefore wouldn't make the changes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even flame the Christmas pudding last year, for God's sake.
I know, no, I thought that was very, very sweet of you to do so.
Much to my father-in-law's chagrin.
Yeah, your father-in-law didn't quite understand the situation that I was. Well, perhaps he didn't know. I can't.
Well, to be honest, he always gets upset at the idea of setting light to alcohol. Anyway, he'd rather drink it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Other thing, it just reminds me of a story. It's just come to mind, actually. I'm going to try and relay it properly. It's just about someone denying something on the behalf of someone else. It's a story that comes up, and we laugh about it all the time. Les, who I work with, we have a laugh about this from time to time because he told me a story from when he was in his youth growing up. He had a little group of friends, and I remember him saying he'd just discovered he declared that he liked Wishbone Ash, the group. And one of the other people in the group said, no, you don't like Wishbone Ash. It was almost as if the other bloke had discovered Wishbone Ash and thought it was quite a cool group to like, and denied Les denied him the joy of liking them.
He wasn't allowed to like Wishbone Ash because someone already liked them.
Exactly. Yeah, this other guy said, no, you don't like Wishbone Ash. So we do joke about that all the time. But I thought it's quite a funny thing when someone is trying to deny on behalf of someone else.
Yeah, well, that example, that person who said to Les, no, you don't like Wishbone Ash, sounds as if he doesn't like things getting too popular.
Exactly. I thought you
were like a reasonable guy to me.
Yeah, I knew you'd tap into it because it's exactly the sort of thought process that you would like.
Yeah, he was basically saying, no, I already like Wishbone Ash. You can't like Wishbone Ash as well. I mean, I don't really know why anyone would particularly want to like Wishbone Ash, to be honest. But
I was going to say exactly the same. I saw them at Reading. You might have been there. I don't know. But I remember seeing them at Reading. You were there. Yeah, seeing Wishbone Ash and thinking, well, there's nothing much to write home about here. I wouldn't defend my right to like Wishbone Ash because they're pretty run of the mill, to be honest. But it's the same happened also. This did happen to me where it was someone else denied it. Again, it was one of those destructive relationships I was in, and the girl was a very controlling girl. And I remember I was talking to a friend of hers about Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And we talked about Jimi Hendrix. I said, yeah, I like Jimi Hendrix. And she said to me, no, you don't like Jimi Hendrix. You're just trying to get in with that. You're just trying to people please by saying you like Jimi Hendrix. And she said, I don't suppose you've got any of his albums, have you? And I remember saying, well, I've got Are You Experienced and Electric Ladyland. And she just suddenly went quiet and moved away from the subject at that point. But I thought, what an outrageous way to behave.
Yeah, that is terrible.
No normal person would do that, would you? You'd let that one slide, surely.
So presumably you were able to ascertain which Jimi Hendrix albums you had by just taking a quick glance at your shelves in alphabetical order, were you?
If we'd have been in my house, then yes, I would have been able to and produced the evidence right there and then. Yeah,
I'd have had to flip through my entire collection to check what albums I had.
Yeah, exactly. I suspect, yeah, and the right album wouldn't be in the right cover anyway, would it?
No, probably not. And I definitely haven't got any Jimi Hendrix albums because I don't like him.
You don't like him? Oh, was he a bit too popular for you as well?
A little bit. No, I wouldn't say I don't like him, but he was never a favourite of mine.
Okay.
He liked some drugs as well, didn't
he? He did, yes, he did, and yes, which was sadly his demise in the end. Yeah.
And on that note,
I was just thinking about that music. I was just thinking because I was going to confess you have guilty pleasures. You were talking about ABBA last week.
That's not guilty. There's nothing guilty about that.
Oh, it's not a guilty pleasure. Okay.
No. What are you going to fess up to? Bay City Rollers?
No, I'm not going to fess up to it now.
Go on, tell me.
I might leave it to the next episode.
Oh, I need to know. You need to tell me.
All right. I'll tell you a guilty pleasure, right, of a song I heard, and you will laugh probably, but I can't remember what it's called now. I can't remember what it's called. Is a song called "I'm Glad You Came" by The Wanted.
The Wanted. That is quite embarrassing, isn't it?
It's very embarrassing. Yeah. But I thought,
that's quite surprising that you've owned up to that.
Well, I thought as you were brave enough to own up to ABBA.
Well, I don't think you'll find that those really are comparable.
Okay. Have you got a guilty pleasure then? In fact, we should do a guilty pleasure song each week for a while for top five. For top five.
Okay. Guilty pleasures. Sure. Okay. So just off. I haven't had any chance to think about this. So just off my head. Guilty pleasure song I really like.
that's embarrassing to like. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how about Mandy by Barry Manilow?
No, you just thought of that off the top of your head.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's a fantastic song. I do. And it's nothing to do with the fact that it rhymes with Landy.
Yeah, well, that is a guilty pleasure, mate. But okay, well, I look forward to hearing your next one. But
It's also one of the other great things about the song Mandy by Barry Manilow is it's got, those songs that have lyrics in them that you can't quite make out and they sound like something when they're actually something else.
Yes.
Man, doesn't Mandy have that line, "You kiss me and stop me from shaving"?
I'm not really familiar with the track.
I think it does.
to that extent, I know it, but I certainly wouldn't know any of the lyrics.
Have you got any Manilow in your collection?
No.
Sure.
No. Yeah.
It'd be next to Motorhead if you have.
It would be right next to Motorhead.
And Mott the Hoople.
Be just before. I've got some Mott the Hoople.
Have you?
Yeah. And I've got some Madness as well. So that's going to be up there, isn't it? Right next to Manilow.
Well, that'll be next week's guilty pleasure then.
Well, they're brilliant. There's nothing guilty about that.
No, stop it.
Anyway, that's about it. I've
Good, well, we've gone on far too long now.
Yeah, you're going to have to cut a lot of this out, aren't you?
Probably. I won't be cutting out your guilty pleasure. You can rest assured.
Well, as long as yours goes in, that's all right.
Yeah, obviously it will, because I don't feel guilty about it, really. But I know that other people would say that it was a guilty pleasure. But right, so I'll see you next week then.
Yeah, will do, mate. Yeah, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter. You can find us on our Facebook page at Sideways Podcast, or you can email us to let us know what you think of the show or with any questions that you might have. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.
Oh, Mandy, well, you came and you gave without taking, but I sent you away. Oh, Mandy, well, you kissed me and stopped me from shaking, and I need you today. Oh,